So, noswaith dda I chi gyd a croeso cynnes I pawb. So, good evening. I'm Alison Hargrove and welcome to this is a bit of a long project title, I've just realised. Coastal Otter Citizen Science Project Results Sharing Event. So, it's a bit of a mouthful. A few little bits of housekeeping before we begin. The presentations will be in English tonight, but we can take questions and comments in English or Welsh. So feel free, whichever language you prefer. A quick thanks to TACP for hosting this evening. The session is being recorded, so we can share it with those unable to attend this evening. You will notice that your cameras and microphones are muted. There will be time for questions at the end, and we can unmute at the end. If you have any issues, if you can't hear, any issues with the tech, put it in the chat. Zoe, if you can maybe keep an eye on that, please, that would be great. So like I said, there will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. So we will unmute your mic for that, or you can pop them in the chat as we go, just so you don't forget them so that they're recorded, and we will answer them at the end. So a quick run through what we're hoping to cover this evening. So a quick welcome, and then we're going to have an introduction to the project, a bit of project background. We are then going to go through the survey data, so some of those results, show you some of those findings. Then we've got quite an exciting bit, the otters bit. There's some quite nice otter footage. I've already seen it, but I'm quite excited to see it again. And then we're going to go on to new steps, so next steps, and then there's going to be questions at the end. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce you just very briefly to the speakers for this evening. So you've got myself and Sue, and we are both area-based SAC or Special Area of Conservation Officers. Sue's waving in the corner there. So I'm based up in North Wales and Sue's based down in Pembrokeshire. But we also work with the other SAC officers across Wales as well. So we've got Mel from Cardigan Bay, Judith from Carmarthen Bay and Estuaries, and Katie down the Severn Estuary. So we all work as a collective. So our role primarily is to coordinate management on our sites, essentially to improve the marine environment. And as part of this, we work on quite a number of projects with a wide range of partners, and this is one of them. So this Coastal Otter project really wouldn't have been possible without the subcontracted help of TACP and SWOT, which is South Wales Otter Trust. So Lee from SWOT has trained and helped volunteers across all of our sites in Wales. That's a bit of a wave from Lee. So he's been travelling to each of those sites. And then we've got Jamie and Zoe from TACP, and they've been helping with the logistics, and they'll be analysing the data and writing the reports. So I am going to pass over to Sue so she can go over the introduction, a bit of background to the project. So next slide, thank you.
Hi, thank you. So yes, so I'm Sue Burton, based down in Pembrokeshire as the Pembrokeshire Marine Special Area of Conservation Officer. So I've had the privilege of dipping in and out of various otter projects over the last 20 years or so, and I can credit the very experienced Jeff Lyles with training me up to be an otter spotter. And I can no longer walk over a bridge across a stream without having to look underneath to see if I can find signs of spraint. When my kids were little, I used to tell them I was looking for trolls. Now they're helping me to search for otter spraint, so that's all good. So a lot of the focus on otters is understandably normally on freshwater inland, but otters do extensively use the marine environment too. We just kind of tend to know less about them on the coast. So we really want to know if the otters on the coast are living and breeding there all the time, or if they are transitioning from the inland waterways, perhaps just visiting the coast for food or on their holidays, who knows. Otters are not just river animals though, so that is the sort of the key to this, and your involvement as volunteers has been really helping to raise awareness of the fact that they're not just river animals, they do also use the coast. So that sets a little bit of context for this work now. Next slide, please. So where is this project taking place, first of all? Well, it's a national project. Its focus is has been on those areas there that you can see: the Penllyn Sinai Special Area Conservation, Cardigan Bay Special Area Conservation, Pembrokeshire Marine, Carmarthen Bay and Estuaries, and also the Severn Estuary. But we have been having sites surveyed around the coast all over, so Anglesey as well, Ynys North Wales, and between those boundaries. Otters don't, know those boundaries there. So yes, so we've been looking all over, and thanks to people who are on the call now and others who can't make it, we've been having a brilliant wide range of people that have been involved in this, which has just been utterly fantastic. Next slide, please. So as Alison has said, she and I are joined by Melanie in Cardigan Bay, and Judith in Carmarthenshire, and then Katie down at the Severn. So collectively we do our own work on our sites, but then collectively we do sort of joint work as well. So we've kind of got this Welsh partnership of MPAs. So MPA stands for Marine Protected Area, and it's an umbrella term really for all of those different sorts of conservation designations that you get that tend to sort of just kind of confuse everybody basically. So if in doubt, you just say Marine Protected Area and then you're kind of covered. So our work is generally on common issues such as water quality and things, and basically working to protect the marine environment is quite difficult because it's always out of sight, out of mind. So raising awareness of that, collaborating with people is absolutely essential. So whether that's working with local communities, different sort of stakeholders, or volunteers like yourselves. So we all kind of trying to work together to sort of bring about positive change. Next slide, please. So the current project, this project here now, the Citizen Science Otter project, is within a large project, which is basically just improving marine protected areas. So we've been very fortunate to have funding for this from the National Lottery Heritage Fund and Welsh Government, and that's been funded through the Nature Networks Fund. It's very difficult for us as environmental organisations to get funding for environmental work. So like many others, we need to sort of chase funding for discrete projects to keep going. So this Otter Citizen Science Project sits under this improving MPAs funded piece of work. So within that, we also have work streams on water quality, litter, reducing marine mammal disturbance. And additionally, we're also looking to update our site management documents, and we also kind of take every opportunity we can to squeeze in awareness raising of Wales's amazing marine life. In addition to this citizen science work, we're also working with Cardiff University Otter Project to analyse otter tissues and better understand otter health and population dynamics in coastal areas. Might touch on that later if there's time. Next slide, please. So otters on the coast, they are a designated feature of some of the marine protected areas. Part of the reason why those areas are protected. They're actually a feature of the Penllyn Sinai site, the Pembrokeshire site, and the Carmarthen Bay and Estuary site. But as we know, and because you've seen signs of them, they are on lots of other places in the coast as well. So trying to build up that information, you've been helping us to be the eyes and ears on the coast, and any sightings that we can get of them feeding and making use of those coastal environments is just essential to help us in the whole management side of things. There's also a national otter survey, which is conducted every 6 years. This is a national survey as well, but it doesn't have so many, it has some coastal sites, but not as many as we've been looking at. So we've been trying to fill the gaps. As it happened, they had their survey last autumn as well, sort of similar time to us. So yeah, we're kind of working with them, trying to fill some gaps and things. And that was the 7th time it was being run last year. And so yeah, now it basically uses quite experienced otter surveyors. So now, as an experienced otter surveyor, you could apply to do that next time it comes around. So this is where you volunteers come in, plugging the gaps. Over to Jamie. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. Good evening, everyone. So as Sue just mentioned, one of the project aims we had was to attempt to try and fill the gaps where otter data is currently lacking with the help of volunteer surveyors. So as you all know, this brings us to training, and we held training sessions at each of the 5 MPAs led by otter specialist Lee Jenkins, who you'll hear a little bit more from later. The sessions, they featured a presentation covering otter ecology, legislation and field signs, including spraint and print. But we also had a practical segment, which we thought was really important. It included giving volunteers the opportunity to try practicing identifying otter signs in the field, sort of supported by Lee. But we also supported these in-person training sessions with a range of online material, including instructional videos, detailing how to identify otter prints and spraints, which I hope you all found helpful. Next slide, please, Zoe. So the survey results, we recorded them using bespoke survey 123 forms. So through this Otter survey form, which I trust you all got to grips with eventually, we were able to record otter signs, including spraint, prints and sightings, but also crucially the absence of signs, which is something a traditional survey may not pick up. Another great feature of the app is that we could accompany the recordings with important data, including an accurate location and the date as well. And this has been an absolutely massive help in compiling all the results that you've submitted across the country, which I will summarize for you now. So we can have the next slide, please. So all of the following results, they're accurate as of mid-January, but any results submitted since then, they're still going to form part of our final reports. So we had a total of 114 volunteers have been involved in the project, and that's absolutely massive. So thank you all. And 136 sites have been surveyed, and about 88 of those sites have been surveyed at least twice. So I just want to say that this represents a really great effort, and I want to thank you all for your commitment to the project so far. Across all of the survey sites, I think we've recorded a total of over 200 otter signs, and this does outweigh by quite a lot the total of 165 negative results that we recorded. Now, this is really valuable data, and it's certainly going to contribute to our understanding of how otters are actually used in Welsh coastal areas. Now, the most common otter signs that we've recorded were spraint, and we also had print, urine burns, and quite a few sightings as well, which is exciting. But other otter signs have been recorded as well, so I'll mention those briefly. We have anal jelly, slides, and runs, amongst others. So we've got a breakdown of these signs here in this figure on the screen. But we've also got quite a few maps, which we'll see in a minute, showing the combined positive and negative signs covering 5-kilometre hexagonal areas for each MPA. So that's an overview. I'll take you through each individual area for MPA now. So on the next slide, please, Zoe. So yeah, we'll kick off with Penllyn. We had a total of 28 sites here surveyed as part of the Penllyn MPA by 21 volunteers, and 14 of these sites have been surveyed at least twice. And during those surveys, we had a total of 28 otter signs recorded. These included 19 spraint, 4 prints, 1 urine burn, and 1 sighting, as well as 3 other recordings. So we've got a breakdown of those signs shown here on the figure on the left. We've also got a map of where these signs are recorded on the right. So it shows quite a good spread there from north to south, which is good to see. It's a good update to the record. So I want to highlight that we've received a really nice variation of spraint recordings in Penllyn. We've got some photos to go along with those there. So I think this is a really, really nice showcase of the different locations that otters can actually spraint or may spraint in, including rocks within freshwater streams, as well as lush tussocks of grass. So the different sprinting locations that otters can use, and the messages that portrays, that was covered in training sessions. So it was really nice to see the visible range actually come through in the results. So thank you to everyone from Pentland. We have the next slide, please, Zoe. So yeah, moving on to Cardigan Bay. We had a total of 10 sites surveyed as part of the Cardigan Bay MPA by 12 volunteers. Now, 7 of these sites have been surveyed at least twice, and we had a total of 20 otter signs recorded, including 14 sprint, 5 prints, and 1 sighting. Now, I wanted to highlight this eye-catching photo. Next slide, please, Zoe. Yeah, there you go. That we received from Lloyd Garvey of an otter in Aberystwyth Harbour. Now, this is an area that hasn't had it hasn't had any otter records submitted since 2017, which, although it might not seem like it, it's actually 8 years ago now. So I think, to me anyway, this really reinforces the benefit of the project and of keeping otter records up to date. We have the next slide, please, sorry. So Pembrokeshire, we had a total of 45 sites surveyed as part of the Pembrokeshire Marine MPA by 37 volunteers, and 34 of these sites have been surveyed at least twice. So we can see from the map there on the right hand side, we've got a really nice spread across the whole area. So plenty of otters in Pembrokeshire, it seems. We've got a total of 92 otter signs been recorded in the area, and these included 52 sprint, 9 prints, 1 urine burn, 22 sightings, and 8 other recordings. So I do want to mention that whilst there is obviously an existing otter volunteer network in Pembrokeshire, which might help explain some of the high number of recordings, still represents a fantastic amount of data. I want to thank everybody involved in collecting it all for their efforts. And if you just pop onto the next slide for me, Zoe, I want to specifically highlight the effort of David Val for surveying around Pembroke. So alongside his more traditional monitoring, Dave actually placed a record form behind the bar at the Waterman's Arm in Pembroke for staff to fill in records of otter activity seen from the waterside pub. And for me, this is a really innovative method, and it's sort of exactly the sort of thing that Citizen Science is all about. So we've got some great data from this, including this photo, which was one of many. So give you all a minute to revel in that. Okay, move the next slide, please, Zoe. Right, Carmarthen Bay. So here we had a total of 35 sites surveyed by 25 volunteers, and 22 of these sites have been surveyed at least twice. So again, look at the map, we've got a lovely spread there. And a total of about 18 otter signs recorded during the Carmarthen Bay and Estuaries otter monitoring. These included 6 sprint, 9 prints, 1 sighting, and 2 other recordings. So I just wanted to highlight the 9 footprint records that we've recorded, which is actually the joint highest of any area across the whole project. So we had some great photos submitted with otter footprints on beaches, like these ones taken at Oxwich Bay, which to me is just perfect for a coastal otter project to have pictures come through like that. So yeah, well done. Moving on to Severn Estuary, last but not least in terms of areas. So a total of 18 sites surveyed as part of the Severn Estuary MPA by 19 volunteers. So 11 of these sites have been surveyed at least twice. And a total of 44 otter signs have been recorded during the Severn Estuary otter monitoring. These included 24 sprint, 6 prints, 2 urine burns, 3 sightings, and 9 other recordings. But just wanted to highlight specifically, it seems like there's a little bit of a bias sort of around the Vale of Glamorgan area there in terms of the spread on the map. But I just wanted to highlight a record we had at Cardiff Bay Barrage of otters captured on security cameras feeding in the lock about 4 a.m. To me, again, I think asking those who've got access to security camera footage, again, really innovative method of capturing data that otherwise, we're just not going to get it. So really well done there. We also received this photo here of an otter that's actually in Penarth above the marina. And again, I think this highlights the sort of the reach that we're getting with this project and the effect it's having on raising awareness of otters amongst the public. And we may never have known that this was here otherwise. So yeah, brilliant. Next slide, please, Zoe. So just want to touch on survey site characteristics. So I want to say a big well done to everyone who's completed the survey site characteristics form, which we've used to record habitat suitability for otters at each site. So as an overview across all sites where this form's been filled out, I think we had a total of 84 sites that were deemed to have shrubs or trees in the area that could actually provide cover for otters. About 22 of those were recorded as continuous cover and about 62 were recorded as patchy cover. Now this actually outweighs a total of 18 sites that were deemed to have no cover at all. And we've got a breakdown of these recordings for each MPA shown on the screen now. Now, this information is really important in establishing what management could actually reduce key pressures and threats in order to benefit coastal otters and try and improve the resilience of marine MPAs in Wales. Now, this form is separate from the survey form. So if you haven't submitted this information, I'm taking this opportunity to urge you to do so if you ever visit your sites again. And we can redistribute a link to this form after this meeting. So yeah, I think thank you everybody for your efforts once again. And I want to encourage everybody, if they've enjoyed surveying as part of this project, do please keep going. You know, we'll have a way of collecting the data moving forward for SWOT. And I think, you know, the more data, the better. So once again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jamie. It's my turn now. Hello again. Hello, everyone. I would say it's nice to see you, but I can't see you. Firstly, a big thank you for all of your hard work, all of your effort. The work we've been doing on the coast is extremely important. As most of you are aware, South Wales Otter Trust has been sending volunteers on the rivers over the past 7 years, focusing on the rivers, and the coastal areas have had a big lack in records over the years, with some areas having no records, and I believe that we've actually picked up brand new otter records, which is brilliant. And all of this is absolutely critical in understanding where the otters are and how they're using the landscape. One of the particular big goals with this, before I move on to my story, is being able to record the negatives. So some of you might have had some negatives. Please don't be disheartened by that, because the negatives are just as important, if not more important, than the positives to move us forward. So out of our 13 species of otter in the world, we only have one, the Eurasian otter, Lutra lutra, and the coastal otters will be slightly different from the inland river, estuary, lakes otters, in the fact that it's bigger areas for them to forage. Otters need to wash the salt water off, so they need access to clean water when they've been out hunting, hence some of the selection of some of your sites. Zoe, if we could have the next slide. I've got a nice little introduction otter having a little bit of a groom. She's been out hunting. She's come on out. Got the favourite log. This was captured by pure chance. Just happened to have the camera trap in the right spot. But this gives us a good indication. They need to maintain their fur, they need to clean it, they need to groom, they need to re-waterproof it to give them the protection, and this is that's just such a lovely video. We had to have that one at the beginning. Okay, so I'll move on to another. This is some otters where I was doing some other camera trapping. Just before we press play, this was actually a female and one cub. She did raise 2 cubs. The female's on the right hand side, the cub is on the left hand side. This cub decided to stay with her, and I estimate she's around 10, 11, 12 months old. What was quite interesting with this little family of 3 is during summer, I another otter went and joined them, which was a female, and I think it was one of this bitch's previous cubs, which is just absolutely amazing behaviour. Now, one of the key things about this, and I'll get Zoe to press play shortly, is keep your eye on the cub on the left-hand side, particularly looking at her abdominal region. Okay, if we can just press play, that would be great. If you have a look there, there's a nice big lump there, and it's just above the hips. So I think that she was actually quite heavily pregnant. Now, I've not actually picked this otter up over the past couple of weeks because she seems to have gone to ground. Mum seems to be around in the territory, and on one occasion we had mum feeding, and another otter swam by, went and said hello, and then continued off. But I don't know if that was the same one or not. Now, what's also a good point about this one is sandcastles. That's what gave me the idea to put the camera trap. So the sandcastle, otherwise known as a castling, obviously they'll scrape that up and they'll spray on top of it to raise the level of it. And on this particular area I found 3 sandcastles. There's another one to the back to the left, and there's another one further down. So of course when we are camera trapping, which I'll talk a little bit about it a little bit later, it's good to find areas where we're not going to be intrusive, and that the otters will be passing through, and then we can capture them. But this was a particularly good shot. I did pick up a male in this area as well, hanging around on the fringes. The idea, if possible, is to try and get my cameras down low enough so I can get the facial shots. So it's the facial shots that enable us to be able to identify them, because every otter's moustache and bib is unique to that otter. So if I can get the facial shots, eventually when we get some facial recognition software, we can put all these into the computer, the magic AI, and we can get some ID, and from that we can start to build up an area of how far otters are moving. And just before we move on to the next slide, I'm gonna tell you about a female that we had in this area 5 years ago. Bearing in mind that the lifespan of wild otters is about 5-6 years, she was picked up 3 weeks ago, 20 miles away, which is absolutely incredible. We were able to ID her by her moustache and her bib. So we're always learning about otters, and the information that you guys have been collecting is just absolutely critical to learning about them. Right, I mustn't go on too long. I see someone's going to look at me in a minute, so I'll move on to my next little mini otter story. Okay, so this is, some of you may have picked up on some of this on some of our training courses. This is little Eli, named after the River Eli. So what happened is a Sunday afternoon, and I got a call saying there's otter cub been found underneath a tree. Now that's the tree you can see down there. This was in the middle of Newport, next to a very busy road and a very high and fast river. So I was actually not near Newport, so I put a little help message out to the group to see if anyone was near. And one of the anglers, who's also a river bailiff, happened to be in Newport and went straight to the scene. And he stood there, he told me, he said, "Lee, I've been guarding it from the crows. The crows have had a big interest into it. I've been stood here shooing them away." So I asked him where the cub was, and the cub was actually round the back of the tree. So I gently crept round, and I was able to grab her, and that's me just having a quick examination of her before I put her into the box, into the back of my car. Now she came home with me, and I'm going to show you a little bit of video of her at home shortly, if I just hold fire 1 second. What was interesting is I brought her home. I had no idea how long she'd been without mum, how long she hadn't eaten for, she drunk. So the first thing was to give her some triage, just quickly check her over. I can do that because of my teaching background and my zoo background. And then I had some of my partner's special salmon soup to give her. She took the first meal a bit reluctantly, and then during the night, if we can play this little shot, during the night I went up to give her another feed, and She's still a bit wobbly, still a bit weak, and I can explain why that was. But as you can see, she's come straight out to me, and I found this with otter cubs. Once they've got to know us, they know we're food. We're not a threat. So, and just help guide her there to the soup. And as you can see, she's very keen. One of the things that we have to be careful of is not to overfeed them, so they'll bloat themselves out. So just letting them take a few pieces and digest them, and be able to bring some energy, and then they start to get some energy, and then they can start to make the trip down to the rescue centre. So the next morning, I loaded her up into my car, and I started heading off to Devon to the UK Wales Otter Trust rescue centre. Whilst I was en route, I got a call saying another cub has been found 2 streets away from this one, and it was actually found underneath a vet's car, and it was now at the vet's. So I took a detour and went and collected this one up. So then I had 2. I looked at them and I thought, right, okay, yeah, they're the same age, brilliant. Let's get them both down to the rescue centre. En route to the rescue centre, Bristol Council called me, and they said that 3 days prior to me finding the first one, there'd been a lactating otter female roadkill in the area. So that means that these cubs have been without mum for 3 days, and they'd probably come out of the holt, maybe got swept up in the river, maybe wandering around, and thankfully they managed to make it into our hands, and we could actually help them out. So that's just a nice little mini otter story, and then I think we've got one more for you after this one. There's a lovely little Eli. It's a privilege. Okay, so one of the other really positive things to come out of this project and training volunteers up is that I think we can just play this one and let it run. So on one of the courses, there's a gentleman called Dave Lavelle, and when I was talking about legislation protecting otters and disturbing them and the legalities of it, I think Dave realised that what he was doing is he'd built an artificial holt, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and he put camera traps on them, on the holt, which we've got some lovely footage of now, so that he could monitor if this holt's being used. Now, it's absolutely amazing that the otters are using an artificial holt, because a lot of them don't. We spend a lot of time and effort into it. And so Dave contacted me after the course. There's a little bit of a scratch there. This is, yeah, there we go. Oh, they got just hit that spot, isn't it? So Dave contacted me afterwards, and he said, would you help me to get a disturbance license from NRW so that I can continue to camera trap them within the law. So I did this myself, and Jeff Lyles, I believe, signed his application, and now, oh, there we go. That's Spraint in action, that one. Can we replay that one? I think it comes again, Zoe, don't worry, it comes again. Yeah, that's what it's all about. So now Dave's able to do this, and he's collecting this vital footage of otters using this holt, because it's not just one. It's that he's picked up a dog otter who's female. One of his recent videos was a female taking bedding into it, so obviously potentially intending to breed. But the other key thing for me, which by having Dave monitor these otters in this area, obviously I'm not going to give the location, is it's someone keeping an eye on the otters in the area, someone seeing what's going on, and just giving them a little bit of extra protection. Now, if you want to camera trap otters, then please choose a sprinting point that you found, or sandcastles, or somewhere you're regularly seeing footprints or trails. Obviously try and avoid couches and holts. If you do think you've found a couch or a holt, then get the what 3 words or grid reference and let us know, because we would like to put it down as a potential, and then at some point we might be able to go and confirm it and be able to protect it. But while you're out there, as Jamie was saying earlier, some of our volunteers have seen otters. You're only going to see them if you get out there. The more you go out there, the more chance you have of seeing them. And then take the opportunity to buy yourself a cheap trail cam. The ones I buy are generally between £30 and £40. I try and go for no glow. As you see, that's glowing. No glow. Sometimes when you're first camera trapping otters, that might be a bit nervous. They might pick up on that and they might come and have a sniff. Once they get used to it, then it doesn't show. And the other side of it is if someone accidentally sets it off and they go, "Oh, what's that red light? Oh, I'll have that. I'll put it on eBay." So it gives you a chance to be able to hide them more. And believe me, I've come up with some ingenious ways of being able to hide trail cams, both from otters. I've had to put some in some really public places, I use little bits of camo net. I got some special little hooks that I can screw the camera into a tree at height, so I can get a little bit above eye level. But as you continue to see, that otter's not at all bothered by the camera traps, and we're getting some good footage and some good records. So I think that's my my Dave Lavelle story. But by the way, just before I do move on, if you've got pictures of your spraint and your footprints that you've found, please share them on South Wales Otter Trust Facebook page if you're on it. Just drop them on there. It helps motivate other people, as it does with sightings. If you're lucky enough to see an otter, obviously crop it so the location isn't given away, but it's a thing to be celebrated, especially when we're doing this hard conservation work. Okay, I think that's my next slide now. That's me done.
Oh, thank you, Lee. I told you it's amazing footage, isn't it? So nice to see. And I think that's why sessions like this are just so interesting, because you get to see what everybody else has been finding and what everyone else is doing. So I'd like to just go over what the next steps are, what's next for this project and what your potential role in it could be. So the first thing I wanted to quick chat about was the data. So be assured that all the data that's been collected via that app, it does go to the relevant data banks, so local record centres, for example. So it is going to the right place. In addition to the data collected on the app, we are producing reports for each site. So you'll get an individual report for each site. So these will analyse the data and provide some recommendations as well. So these will be ready in the spring. So both of those bits of information, we'll make sure that they're going to the right places. So the data and the reports will help us determine, how otters, or coastal otters specifically, are doing. Then a little bit more towards the SAC sort of angle. So as SAC officers, we will also use this data to support funding bids. So all of this work that gets undertaken on SACs or MPAs, we need grant money in order to do it. So to continue projects like this. So this data is invaluable when it comes to going for future funding. This data will help us prioritise where to focus our efforts for a start, and really importantly, it gives us a really, really good evidence base. And what that'll help us do, it helps us to decide where to focus our work and what needs to be done. Is it more monitoring that we need? Are there further gaps that need filling? I, for one, absolutely, I think we need to keep monitoring. But then there's the other side of it, the actual maybe habitat management and things like that. So that's kind of where the project is going. Next slide, please. So your involvement and the reports I've just mentioned do highlight the widespread use of the marine environment by otters across Wales, which is brilliant. And involving local people in local environmental issues, it really does help to raise awareness and understanding of human impacts. And this does provide real impetus for environmental protection. And I can't stress just how important that is and how important your role has been in that as well. We've seen kind of the knock-on effect of your influence within your sites and local communities has been absolutely brilliant. Next slide, please. So what's next in terms of otters? So we have been able to secure a little bit of funding to keep the app going. We're so happy. So SWOT has agreed to host the app moving forwards. So we're very excited about that. So it's actually a really good output, I think, from this project, because we now have somewhere where we can report our sightings on a long-term basis, which is brilliant. So basically, if you're happy to do so, everything is set up. You can continue to monitor otters for as long as you like, basically. Everything is set up. So you use the same app. You can monitor your same locations. You can monitor new locations if you like. If you need some help, get in touch. We're more than happy to help iron out any issues that you might have. Also, don't forget you can use that independent site option from the drop-down list. That I have found that to be really, really useful. As Sue mentioned in the beginning, I also find myself now kind of very much looking down whenever I go for a walk. And we see things everywhere. So being able to report those sightings when they're not on your survey patch is really, really useful. One thing I will mention is, so the app will be the same, the survey form is going to be the same, but that will be migrating over to SWOT in May. So when you actually come to fill it out, all of it is going to be the same, but you will need to re-download the form. So we are going to send you an email with full instructions. Any trouble, just get in touch and we'll help you out. But other than that, everything stays the same. The other thing that we're hoping to do, this is just a bit of an idea at the moment, so I haven't got a huge amount of information about it. We are hoping to set up maybe some satellite groups within the sites. We do have some really keen volunteers. So yes, we were just wondering whether or not volunteers would like to be trained up a bit further and to help train other volunteers. So we will keep you in the loop with that and let you know how that progresses on each site. So we will email you about it. The other thing that you can take part in, which I think Sue mentioned earlier, is the National Otter Survey for Wales. So these are kind of one-off surveys at certain sites every 6, maybe 7 years. So they do need volunteers as well. The next one is in 2030. So you will see, obviously the gaps are quite big. They're 6-year gaps. So the surveys that you undertake are so vital in filling in those gaps, aren't they? So that you don't have these big, huge kind of 6-yearly chunks between surveys. So next slide, please. So as well as otter surveys, as we mentioned earlier, we do look at a wide range of issues impacting the marine environment. And with that, there does come quite a wide range of volunteering opportunities, to be honest. So I thought I'd just mention them just in case anyone's interested. So each site is different. So depending where you are in the country, each site has different pressures, different priorities, and consequently different projects that we're running. So we have things like beach cleans, water quality monitoring, public awareness campaigns. As a bit of an example, up in North Wales, I'm going to use the opportunity to plug for some volunteers really quickly as I have your attention. We are running quite a big seagrass restoration project up in North Wales called Seagrass Ocean Rescue. So we are reseeding North Wales essentially with seagrass seeds. It's a really exciting opportunity to get involved. It's very hands-on, so that's a picture of people reseeding there actually. You do get a bit sandy and muddy, but it's all good fun. So if you'd like to help with that project, we do have some spaces available for reseeding at the end of this month. So we will be sending out an email in the next few days with all the details, and keep an eye on our Facebook page as well, because it'll all be posted on there. So on that note, if you would like to be added to our database, let us know. A lot of you have already, so if you're on there, you don't need to do anything. But if you're not sure, we can check. Or if you haven't and you'd like to be added, please put your name in the chat. And if you can also put what county you live in, so we can add you to the correct contact list, that would be great. So that way you'll get the information directly from us. So any volunteering opportunities, we also try and do some site updates as well. So we don't inundate people with information, but it just keeps you up to date, and it lets you know how the piece of volunteering that you're doing fits into that wider kind of marine management picture, which is really interesting. Alternatively, you can keep an eye out for the site's social media platforms, because we do post quite regularly across our platforms for each site. Next slide, please. Okay, I am going to take a couple of minutes to talk about evaluation. It's a bit of a boring topic. So we did send out evaluation forms before you did your training, and then we've very recently sent out kind of post-survey evaluation forms as well. So Main reason for that is we'd like to know what difference this has made to you and how we can improve as well. So that's really important. But in addition, these evaluation forms, they really help us when we're developing funding bids for the future. Like I said, it's all based on grant funding. So anything that we can do to prove how effective these projects are is just of so much benefit to us. Whenever we go for grant funding, we have to demonstrate the value of the data that we collect, but also the impact it has on people, which is incredibly important, all to do with health and well-being and getting people involved and reconnected with the environment. So I know that they can be slightly annoying to fill in. I promise they're not too long, but it would mean the world if you could just spend a few minutes filling those in. So you've got QR codes there for the Welsh form and for the English form. I can hear it pinging in the chat. So the links are in the chat as well. You have had it by email, and we will send it out by email again, just so you've got multiple opportunities to fill out your evaluation forms. But it does really help. Next slide, please. Right, so I'd like to open the floor for any questions that you've got. Like I said, please feel free. English or Welsh is fine. So there's two ways you can ask questions. You can either raise your hand. So there's a little hand at the top of your screen. So you can do it that way, or you can write your questions in the chat. Either way is absolutely fine. So I'm going to open the floor. Does anybody have any questions?
Could I just very quickly jump in? One thing I completely forgot to mention. I recently did some filming with ITV's Coast and Country about otters and otter surveying. It will be aired towards the end of March. We'll let you know when that episode is on, so please try and catch it.
Sounds good. So does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask? Laura, I don't know if there's anything in the chat that you've spotted.
Hi there. Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, firstly, I've just said I absolutely love being part of the project because, you know, I'm not an ecologist, I'm not trained at all, but just being able to do a little bit towards helping raise awareness of otters and the fact that we've plugged a big gap, you know, in the survey data, just fantastic. So I really like to carry on. So I have a question. So I mentioned right at the beginning, you said the data would be sent somewhere. Would it go to NRW or other bodies like that?
Yes, absolutely. So that's what we're pushing for. So we work really closely with NRW as well. Lee, I don't know if Lee or Jamie want to come in with the specifics of where the data goes. So I know you were chatting to local record centres, but yes, absolutely. NRW will have the data as well. I don't know if either one of you wants to come in to be a bit more specific.
I don't
You're
mind.
on mute.
I'll come in on this one. Okay, so yeah, all of our records go to the local environmental record centres for each region. We do have to be careful of duplicating records if you are doing surveys for someone else. So they just need to go in once, either through our app or through the apps that the record centres use. Now, please bear in mind that because we are all trained volunteers, we are verified. So just sending in a random record to environmental records, it will go to a county recorder and it will sit in their inbox until they get down to that. And that can take quite a lot of time to get to there. So our records will go onto the system as soon as possible, which is obviously the best interest for the otters. And then moving forward with using the app that's been kindly sponsored by the MPAs, we will have an interactive map as well. So some of our records will all go to environmental records, and then we'll have an interactive map that we can share with the MPAs, NRW, and Cardiff University Otter Project and other stakeholders that might want to see our up-to-date information. And this is where we will have the negatives recorded as well. So if there is work or development or habitat work or building going on, they can look at the survey form, be able to zoom in and see what was found where, and that makes it quite critical and really good. So I say quite groundbreaking. I hope that answers it.
Thanks, Lee.
Great, thank you.
There's a similar question in the chat, actually. So somebody is monitoring for a local group as well. So I think they're asking, should they input that data on the app as well as for their local group, or will that be a duplication of records? I think, is that a Lee question as well?
Yeah, if your group is happy to put it through the app, I mean, if you can move them onto the app, even better. Everyone's using the same thing, but we do have to be careful about duplicating them. So they just need to go through one source, and the idea is the app is there to be used. The more people we can get using it, the better.
Thank you, Lee. Saren, you got a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering, one of my survey sites where I always find signs of otters, it does have a like a box, like what seems like a monitoring box for, I don't know if it would be like otters or mink or something like that. And yeah, I just wondered, how would I sort of identify between that being an official, it does have like a reg number on it, but it doesn't have like a logo or anything like that. Should I take a photo of that and send that in with the reg plate? And are you guys able to sort of check that that's like a legitimate, like maybe conservational measure, or versus like maybe someone setting a trap? Like, how would I distinguish or work out where it's coming from?
Kind of understand what you mean. So
Yeah.
So are you saying if you find something that looks like it could be an illegal trap for otters or mink?
Yeah, or if I,
Yeah.
or just to
Okay.
double check, I think it's completely fine because it does seem to have a reg plate on it. But
Okay,
like, how would
yeah.
how would I check that, or would I need to send that to you for you to check?
Someone will be putting them out. What's critical with mink traps is they have otter guards on them, which is two
Okay.
poles at the entrance which
Yeah.
stop otters to being able to get in. So anyone who's set the trap in an official capacity should have done that, and if not, they need yeah, give me their address. But it's worth checking with maybe local wildlife trust.
Okay.
And asking if they're doing. Also, the Rivers Trusts are doing mink work as well
Okay.
around Wales, so it's worth checking with them. So just take a picture of the reg number,
Yeah.
and then just contact them and just say, look, this is location, this is to do with you. And then, like I say, if they say yes, then you can say, where's the otter guard? I mean, sometimes the mink traps aren't traps; they're just footprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then they might not have a guard on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's worth checking. But it's very good to keep an eye out where we're all out and about for anything that does look unusual or suspicious, and get it reported. If you struggle, if you find something and you struggle to get it reported, just drop me a line.
Okay. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Saren. Has anybody else got any questions they'd like to ask? Laura?
Hello, sorry, it's me again.
That's all right.
I just one of the sites I chose was very difficult to access. There's a little bit of a public right of way, but not very far, and then big signs saying private land, no access. So I just wonder, in those instances, could we come to you and ask to get permission from a landowner to get a bit further onto the site? I just wonder, because it's the upper part of the estuary, the watercourse down into Larne, and I know people have spotted them who live close to the watercourse, so I know they're there. But it'd be great to be able to, send you some records, but I can't physically get there. Yes.
Laura, I'll answer that for you if you like. So yeah, I'll put my email in the chat. So if you get in touch with me, I'll speak to somebody in Carmarthenshire Council, and if you let me know the details of exactly where it is, we'll see if we can sort of set out something for
brilliant.
you.
Oh, great, thank you.
Permission for access.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Laura. What I'd say as well is if you're unsure of who to ask, yeah, get in touch with your MPA officer, which would be me or Sue or Katie or whoever. I will put all of our contact details up at the end again, so take a picture of it. And then we can, if we don't know the answer, we can at least point you in the right direction to who will have the answer, hopefully. Andy.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks very much for this. This is great. I don't know whether this is something that you might have knowledge or advice on, but we have reported presence of otters in a pond and streams in our community in Pembrokeshire, and they've been noted to be in this area for quite some time through other previous surveys that have taken place. There's a local housing development that's being proposed, and the stream that feeds the pond where the otters are is proposed to be converted into a conveyancing channel for surface water runoff that will be drained into the pond. There have been no studies on potential impact on the aquatic habitat. Otters are registered as being present, but do you have any thoughts or guidance as to, should we be insisting that there be an evaluation of the impact of what's being proposed on the habitat which the otters depend upon, or is it something they can get away with but without due care and diligence?
Okay, I'll stick my hand up to this one because I am an ecologist. So I know how this system works. Basically, the developers will need to have done a phase 1 study. They'll need to have checked with environmental records for any records of protected species in the area. With otters, sometimes the otters gets pushed under the carpet because people don't really want to go there. So what I normally do if I get a query up is I'll contact the council, which would have the planning for that area, whichever your local council is, and ask them. You should be able to find it online if you do a search, go onto your local council's website and look at planning applications, and then you'll be able to see if the planning application pops up. The other thing which I might be able to do in the short term, or in fact any of us, if we've still got access to the records for the project, is potentially have a look at what existing records are in the area and make sure that those records are actually registered with the Environmental Record Centre, because sometimes, like I was saying earlier, some of those records take a long time to get onto the system, and so they might not be there when the ecologist checks. But normally it's looking at there you go, Sue will look into it, and then with the ecologist report, if you want me to second read it when you've got hold of it, then just send it to me and I will.
Yeah, thank you. Just FYI, this is Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Authority, so I've reviewed all the ecologist reports that have been submitted. I'm an environmental biodiversity specialist myself, and there's no, while they mention otters as being present, there's been no study on the aquatic habitat or an evaluation of identification of risks associated with the impact of draining surface water into the pond that they live in. So I just wondered, can we expect any more, or is it simply the fact that they exist? Oh yeah, it's not an issue. I mean, for me, I in other countries where I work, when we have a species of concern, I don't know off the top of my head, I guess otters are least concerned in the UK. But when we have a species of concern, that is a red flag. Right now in Georgia, where I'm working, the otters there in the hydropower project, and it's causing all sorts of requirements to be imposed on the developer of the hydropower project to protect the otter habitat and to compensate for any damage that may be unavoidable on the otter habitat. So I don't know if that applies something similar in our context.
That somewhere within the documentation for the planning, there should be an environmental impact statement.
That was waived. They got a waiver that an environmental impact assessment wasn't necessary, remarkably. Yeah.
Yeah, well, otters have got the highest level of protection. So if they're there, then but obviously without being able to see the details of it, it's very difficult. I don't know if there's a recorded halt there, recorded couch, because that changes the level of protection, or if it's just been otter sightings. So, but this is, again, it's without seeing the paperwork, it makes it difficult to sort of move forward.
But you would expect that if that there are conditions under which a greater level of care and attention needs to be paid.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, otters being present should trigger an otter survey, at least one, ideally 2, 3, in a perfect world 4, to do one each season. So that depends on the ecologist report. I mean, if you between you and Sue, you're able to do a bit of digging and find the ecologist report, I'll happily look through. So.
Okay, thanks very much, Lee. I have read it. I'll go back and look at it again and discuss with Sue. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Zoe, could you just move the slide on one for me? I've just realised it's just gone 8 o'clock. So yeah, we've come to the end of our session. If you do have any more questions, feel free to type them really quickly into the chat now, or you can email us afterwards. That's absolutely fine. I just wanted to take the opportunity really, first of all, to thank all the SAC officers and the teams across Wales, TACP and SWOT for helping to make this project a success. But most of all, I want to thank all the volunteers, all of you for taking part, because without you, it wouldn't have happened. So a huge heartfelt thanks to all of you for taking part. So thanks to everybody. Keep up the good work. If you have any questions, take a picture of that slide there. We will send you copies of the slides anyway. But yeah, take a picture, get in touch, and hopefully we'll see you out on a river sometime soon. And we'll keep you updated. So on that, I'm going to close the session, and thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Thank you, volunteers.
Yeah, thanks all.
Good night.
Thank you.